All right. So I think we can probably go ahead and get started. I hope everyone is staying warm. I know it's really snowy and chilly outside. So today we're going to be covering session 3, which is backups and phishing and ransomware. So in protecting your email and reputation. Shazad, you can go ahead and move to the next slide. So did you guys complete your homework? If you did, great. If you didn't get a chance to, if you could try to do that in the next week or so, just while it's still fresh in your mind, that would be great. And I'm sure you all got the recording of the last week's session from Katya. She should have sent that around, but if not, you can find it on the Cyber Readiness Institute's YouTube channel. If you just type CR or Cyber Readiness Institute into YouTube, it should pop up pretty quickly. But I guess we can go ahead and get started. Again, we're just covering backup and recovery and protecting email and your reputation. So last week we spoke a little bit about the importance of backups when it came to the software updates and a little bit about ransomware. But this session will take a really deep dive into that. So what are backups? Backups are copies of key information or data that are stored separate to your device. So that means either in the cloud or an external hard drive or somewhere that is not on the device that you're trying to save that data for. Let's say you have an incident, whether it's a ransomware attack or you lose access to your computer or your device for whatever reason. You can then restore everything that was on that device using backups. So you can have business continuity. And that is extremely important when it comes to bringing in revenue and other things. As you can see here, the average global cost of a data breach is $3.92 million US. Not every company is going to have that large of a cost, but at the same time, it is likely more than you're willing to spend. So just having a backup of your records and your devices is really going to save you a lot of time and effort and money in the long run. Just another stat about small and medium-sized businesses here from Bank of America is that 80% of businesses have less than 10 employees and 95% have less than 100. This is kind of interesting, mainly because if you think about all of the businesses in the world, small and medium-sized businesses make up a huge portion of that, even though they may not be making up that larger revenue portion. But all of these small and medium-sized businesses feed up in a value chain or supply chain to these larger businesses. So it's helpful to keep everyone secure. Move on to the next slide. So as I mentioned before, backups are absolutely critical to business continuity. Not being able to access your records, not being able to send an invoice or anything along those lines, not being able to access your reservations if you're a restaurant or a hotel would be a huge issue. And if you're not able to keep track of who's paid you and things like that, that is just absolutely brutal as far as business continuity goes. So how much, here's just a couple of questions to think through to kind of give you an idea of how important backups are. What would happen if you lost your smartphone or tablet? If you're like me, who practically lives on my smartphone, I would be in big trouble. I would not be able to complete a handful of my work. If you were unable to use your IT systems for a day, so if you were not able to access internet, or if you, for some reason, were not able to, if you were a financial institution, to get onto the markets, that would be a huge issue. Important proposals, customer files, reservations, any of those things are extremely important to keeping your business running. And one type of incident that can occur is ransomware. Are you prepared to pay a ransom if that were to come up? 9 times out of 10, most people recommend not paying ransom. And if you have backups, you shouldn't have to pay ransom because you can just wipe your device and reload a new, or reload your backup onto your device. So there's a lot of reasons why backups are important. And the main reasons are being able to recover quickly and resume your operations. So as I mentioned before, ransomware is a type of attack that can block access to your system or your device, or even just a file. Let's say I don't know, an Excel file that had all of your reservations or your invoices in it, until a ransom is paid. So examples of this are CryptoLocker, which exploited a vulnerability in Windows OS in 2013, and WannaCry, which I mentioned last week, that was exploited a vulnerability in the Windows operating system in 2017. And that particular ransomware attack shut down a large portion of the world, not just the US, but all over. Shut down major shipping companies, hospitals. It was bad news for everyone, and it took people quite a while to get back on track after that attack. As you can see here, ransomware is the #1 malware threat to small businesses. As tempting as it is to pay ransomware, again, general advice is not to. And if you have a backup, it makes that decision a million times easier. So there are multiple different types of backups. There's offline backups, such as hard drives, USB drives, memory cards. All of those things are great, as long as you know that you've bought it new. Don't use one that you've gotten at a conference, because who knows what's been on that device. But having an external hard drive with your backup on it is great. There's a couple cons to that, is that you have to remember where it is, A, and B, it can be subject to extreme heat, water, all of those types of things. So you need to make sure you're also keeping it in a safe place. And with that also goes, if it's a small USB, you run the risk of losing it. In general, again, try to buy only new USBs or external hard drives, rather than using old ones, because you never know what's on them. As far as pros go for offline backups, it's pretty easy. You don't have to have an internet connection, and it's relatively inexpensive because you don't have to pay for the long-term storage in the cloud. And there's another type of backup, and that is online or cloud backups. It is pretty easy to do. You will have to, depending on the amount of storage you're taking up, you may have to pay a little bit extra, and that's not generally too much of an issue, but it is something to consider. But you don't have to worry about losing your backup because it's always there. It's in the cloud. You don't have to worry about your backup getting destroyed by water, fire, extreme heat, or anything like that. So that's a huge pro for online backups. Couple cons are that you must be connected to the internet. Again, there's a limited amount of space depending on the service and how much you're willing to pay. And it takes quite a bit of time to upload all of your files. And if you're uploading your entire device to the cloud, it could take up to, I don't know, a few hours to a full day, depending on how often you're backing up your device, how much material you have on your device. It just really depends. But So you've got your offline backups that are relatively inexpensive. There might be some upfront cost, but as long as you know where it is, it's quick and simple. And then you've got the other type, which is online. It is always available, more or less, but it can take a little bit longer and could be more expensive in the long run. So let's say an incident does occur, and for some reason you didn't back up, or you did back up and you're not exactly sure where it is, or any of those things. Having a disaster recovery or an incident response plan is absolutely critical. Keeping this response plan up to date, conducting mock scenarios, making sure everyone in your company or your organization knows how to implement and move forward post-incident is extremely important. The Cyber Readiness Institute offers free templates and can walk you through creating your incident response plan with our free Cyber Readiness program. There's the link there. You can also find it by going to our website. But it walks through pretty much everything we've talked about on over the past 3 sessions, and it will also help create your incident response plan and give you actionable steps to do that. So for your homework for next time, or whenever you can get to it, you can back up your Android devices, which the directions are here. You open up your smartphone setting up, scroll down to accounts and backup, tap on backup and restore, and click on backup my data. Add your account. It should already be there, but if not, go ahead and add it. There are other apps that you could use to back up your devices. Just do a little bit of research to find out what's best for you and your organization or personally. So we can go to the next slide. And then for backing up your other devices, backing up your iPhone to the iCloud, you can go to settings, tap iCloud, and then back that up. It generally takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, so just be prepared for that. Or you can back up your iPhone to a device, but then you also run the risk of making sure you have to back up your device as well. So connect your iPhone to a Mac or a PC and click Trust the Computer, and then you can run your backup from there. In general, make sure you have backups to any device that is critical to your business continuity. And this will cover that as well. Backing up to an external hard drive. You can use file history or Windows backup, depending on which operating system you're using. Or you can do a cloud backup. You can also back up your Mac by using Time Machine, and then make sure you encrypt your backups if possible. It's just an added layer of protection, but you also have to remember that encryption key as well. So keep that in mind if and when you do that. I guess I can pause here to see if anybody has any questions about backups and incident response plans before we move on to the next section. If nobody has any questions, we can go ahead and roll into protecting your email and reputation, and I will turn it over to Shazad.
Hey, thanks, Leslie. So I'm going to talk about protect your email and reputation. And what our main focus here in terms of email is having things like phishing come into play. And so this is something that we did talk about a little bit last week about the different types of phishing, like spear phishing and whaling and so on and so forth that we talked about. What we want to focus here is how, in terms of what are the other aspects, things to focus on, and what are at least one mechanism that you can use to help protect from a specific type of spoofing that could impact your business. But the main thing is that when it comes to phishing, right, it's not just receiving an email message or a voicemail message or a text message, right? The point of phishing is that they want to do more than just getting an email through your spam filters, your phishing filters, right? They want you to click on something. That way, if you click on a link, supply some information, right? They want to do fraudulent type of activity, right? Maybe have you transfer some sort of banking information to their location. They want you to give them the credit card information, right? They want theft of PII. They want your personal identifiable information, right? They want your full name, credit card numbers, tax information, anything that they can take from you. They can either take and sell, or they can take and try to take money from that and have financial gain from it. Or they could just be doing ransomware or other types of malware onto that machine, right? So they can just knock out that machine completely. And then, like Leslie said, in terms of ransomware, now you have an impact on your business, potentially lose a lot of money, and so on. So the thing is that phishing has been around for such a long time. It almost seems like phishing has been around ever since email was created. But why is it so difficult why is it still hard to stop phishing? Why is phishing still getting through these sophisticated spam and phishing filters that all these different email providers have, or the security providers have? And it's because it's becoming more and more difficult to determine if that message is coming from a legitimate source, right? Because they look cleaner. They look more and more like the actual email that these organizations will send, right? So it's hard to tell. And then they start spoofing and using names that are similar to maybe that the organization does own it. Sorry? Is there a question? No? Okay. And in some cases, they actually use the legitimate domain name. They actually use the domain name that's being used in the email, and they're using that as a spoofed address. So they're capable of pretending to be from that particular organization. So here are some phishing statistics to just show, like, over the years, even though all these different mechanisms are being put in place, that there are still increases in phishing. I wouldn't be surprised if the numbers that once they get released for 2020, that the numbers are high, right? Because in that case, because of the pandemic, there's a lot more phishing type emails related to COVID-19. So the numbers are probably going to increase and be high because of that. So people will take advantage, and phishing emails and messages, and the people who are taking advantage of those are going to take advantage of the current situation to gather and gain more information. Right. So here's a little bit more statistics. That 91% of all cyber attacks start with a phishing email. Right. And 81% of companies that fell for a phishing attack ended up losing customers. And the reason why is because there's a brand, there's a trust issue that comes along with this. There's a branding type issue that comes along with these types of phishing attacks, right? Because if messages are actually using your name and people think that it is coming from you, they're going to say, hey, okay, you know what? I've had enough. I don't want this anymore. Stop. Even if they try to stop it or they block it, they're still getting these messages in their spam folders, or some messages tend to trickle through. So another type of email security or email issue out there is business email compromise, right? And this is where it's directed at your particular business, right? This is also known as email account compromise. And there's different types or forms of business email compromise, right? This is where they can spoof your email account or your website. They can send spear phishing emails that are using your name or your business information. And they can use malware to infect them. But again, it's using your systems. This could also be where they actually do an account compromise. So they've taken over your system, right? They've broken into your account. They figured out your username and password. They broke into your account, and now they're actually using your email and your email servers to send messages, right? And BEC is a major financial loss in terms of for organizations and how much money they have lost because of this. So here are just some examples. This is taking the FBI 2019 Internet Crime Report, because they do release this information based on the data that they gather, right? And that you can see here is in that, in terms of the number of victims based on the FBI for BEC, there's 23,775 victims, But look at the amount of money that was lost. $1.8 billion were lost because of BEC, right? Just from the 23,000 victims that that reported this information and that they're aware of. Right. And just to give you some examples is that BEC attacks just don't impact, businesses or banks. They can impact cities, right? Cities lost anywhere from $80,000 to $1.7 million. But they won't stop there, right? They will go even after religious institutions, right? Who would think that going after a religious institution, would they do that? Because religious institutions really tend to rely on, right, donations mainly, or maybe some government funding depending on where you're located. But there was a religious institution that lost 1.73 million because of business email compromise, right? And this is in US dollars. Then we're talking about this, but this is the type of financial loss that can occur because of this. So it's important that you make sure you take the actions and the steps to protect your organization from these types of emails and phishing emails. So the other thing aspect in terms of phishing emails is that phishing emails spoof, right? They spoof something within your organization or something in some means in that email. So there's 3 types of spoofing, right? So display name spoofing. This is where when the person looks at the from address, this is what they see. They'll see the company, and then they'll see, maybe, and that's it. They'll say the company name or maybe the CEO's name or something that associated with the name, right? GCA info, for example, for Global Cyber Alliance info, Global Cyber Alliance support, something like that. But if you actually did hover over the display name, it's actually something else at yahoo.com. Right. And what are the chances of somebody, like say your CEO or your financial officer is going to actually send you an email from their Yahoo account related to work? So this is like the actions you need to take, make sure users are aware of it, make sure your staff are aware of it. Like, look, we'll never send an email from your Yahoo account. If you're not sure, pick up the phone, call that person and make sure that if they actually sent that from their personal address or not. Then there's domain name spoofing, and domain name spoofing is where they're actually using the legitimate domain name, right? So they're using something at like info@globalcyberalliance.org. They're actually using the particular and specific domain name. And there's something called DMARC, which I'm going to talk about in the next few slides, is what is something that you can use to protect against that, to prevent people from actually using your domain name. Then there's lookalike domain spoofing. So what lookalike domain spoofing is that if you look really closely at the actual name that you see here, it looks like it's company.com, but it's actually cornpany.com. So replace the M with an R and an N. So in this case, we made it a little bit bigger. So you can, if you look really close, you can see that split there. But if you look at it really quickly, or if the font was a little smaller, that R and N will actually kind of merge together and it will look like an M. All right. So these are things you have to look for. Or the people will put, instead of an O, they'll put a 0, right? They'll put google.com in capital letters. So that way it looks like it's saying google.com, but the O's are actually zeros. So this is where you have to make sure you check the email addresses carefully. There are security and gateway filters that you can use to check for these kinds of things as well. Now, one solution I mentioned was DMARC. DMARC stands for Domain-Based Message Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. I know it's a lot to say, but the purpose of DMARC is that it acts like an identity check for your organization's domain name. So the goal of DMARC is really to say, my messages are protected. I have an authentication mechanism set to my domain, and therefore my domain is protected. And as long as they're coming from the systems that I have authorized and has my authentication mechanism, then you should accept the message. If it's coming from anywhere else, you need to reject the message, right? So there's different levels of DMARC and different aspects of DMARC in terms of how you can control it and how you can set it up and configure it. But overall, the benefits of using DMARC is it's going to offer brand protection, right? Because it prevents an person pretending to be you in an email. So they can't use your actual domain name, right? They can't make up an account called ted@globalcyberalliance.org because it doesn't exist, right? And unless they actually compromise our servers, then they could probably do something like that, but they can't set up their own server set and pretend to be globalcyberalliance.org and start sending email. So it helps prevent you it also helps prevent you from receiving an email from an imposter. Right. So more than 80% of the consumer inboxes are actually protected with DMARC. So you probably don't even not aware of that. Like, so if you're using gmail.com, hotmail.com, outlook.com, those kinds of things, those are already protected with DMARC. They use that as a layer of protection to prevent these indirect domain name spoofings. It actually does improve deliverability. There's some reports out there that say that it actually increases 10% of deliverability of messages. So because again, all these different systems are using DMARC as a check. So they know, say, oh, you have DMARC set up, you have it set up to at this level of enforcement. So your things should be set up, everything should be set up correctly. You have authentication in place. So we can actually send your message to the inbox. Right. The other nice thing about this is that it has a reporting mechanism built into it. Right. So this way you can actually see what's going on with your email messages, because it's the receiving side that will actually send these reports back to you and let you know, hey, this is what happened with your messages. This is who we're seeing your messages come from. You know, these are the IP addresses that are sending using your domain name. So have all the fraudulent ones and all the legitimate IPs that are actually using your domain name. But in order for this to work, both the sending side and the receiving side need to set it up. Right, because as long as they both set it up, then everyone is being protected from email domain spoofing. So it's important that DMARC is being utilized by all organizations. Now you actually have control over what happens with the messages. Excuse me. That's one of the nice things about DMARC. You actually have control over it because you're the one who defines and tells the receiving side what to do. Right. So this way, the receiving side doesn't have to try to figure it out. They don't have to determine, okay, is this email legitimate? Is it fraudulent? Is it coming from a good source or coming from a bad source? Who's actually sending this message? So you can create this policy, and in the policy, you can define one of three settings. You can say that it's at policy level none, and policy level none is kind of like monitored only mode, right? So you're saying we want to see what's going on with our messages. So we're going to enable DMARC. We're going to put it at level 9, but let us know, report back to us and let us know what's going on with our messages. Would you have blocked it? Is it coming from a fraudulent source? Is it, what are the things that could have potentially happened, and where are these messages actually coming from? Then you can go, once you review these reports, make some adjustments and make sure your systems are actually set up correctly. Then you can go to a quarantine or a reject level. Right, because you have to be careful with this, because you don't want to end up going to a high level, because if you have quarantine and authentication mechanisms fail, messages start going, legitimate messages could potentially go to spam or junk. Your goal is to make sure that all the fraudulent messages go to spam or junk, not your actual messages coming from you. And then reject, if authentications fails, the message is completely dropped and not delivered at all. Right. So the last thing you need is to block legitimate messages. Right. So that's why the best practice is to start at none and gradually move to reject. And we do recommend that you do go through the process of DMARC, because it has been known that places like Google and Microsoft have blocked legitimate domains because they saw a large amount of spam or phishing from those domains, right? We've seen hospitals actually get blocked because Google blocked the hospital because they saw a large amount of spam, a large amount of phishing activity from that particular domain. So they said, okay, you know what? We're blocking your domain until you set up authentication mechanisms to prove that messages are coming from legitimate domains. And that way they can prevent anything that's fraudulent, they can block those appropriately. So in essence, they asked them to put in DMARC. Right? We've seen this happen to a retail store. Right, and apparently it's snowing over in Georgia, so it was actually a ski rental shop that I forget who actually which email service providers started blocking them, but they started getting blocked again because there was a lot of spam that they were seeing from that particular domain. So the only way they can get past that was to implement something like DMARC, so that way they can actually send their messages, and the email service providers that are out there, they know that these messages are coming from legitimate sources, and then they know which ones are fraudulent based on the authentication mechanisms, and then they started blocking it. Right, so that's why this is where the benefit of DMARC comes into place. It's not necessarily an easy process to go through. Admittedly, that's why here in Global Cyber Alliance, we're here to help. We can provide you with the guidance and resources to help you get through and get the DMARC process going and how to implement it on your domain. Right, so this is something that you're going to implement to your email domain. This is not something that you would implement if you're using gmail.com or hotmail.com, because Google and Microsoft own those domains. It has to be a domain that you particularly own. Right, so there are a lot of checkers out there to check to see if your email domain has DMARC enabled or not. It won't check for protection. It just checks to see if your domain has a policy on it. Right. So, but if you don't see one, then implement DMARC on your email domain. Right. There's a lot of resources out there. Global Cyber Alliance is one of the resources that you can use. There are many other ones as well that are out there that you can use. For example, I believe actually in Georgia or in that region is a group called Easy DMARC. Right. They can help provide guidance with setting it up and going through the DMARC process as well. Right, but otherwise for the Global Cyber Alliance, we have quite a few things. We have a boot camp. We have an online a boot camp that we've gone through that will be actually coming up again in May. That actually will guide you through the entire process. We'll explain in full technical detail what DMARC is, how it works, what are the different parts to it, what are the things associated with it. Have a demonstration of how to actually implement DMARC for domains. Right. We also have a setup guide that you can go to. All this is free. This is all free to use. You can go to our setup guide and go through the process and learn it as well. Right. But the key part is also going to be to review those reports. So you may need to have some level of tool to actually review those reports, because those reports are not easy to read on their own. You do need some level or a tool to be able to read those reports. And GCA does not provide DMARC tools for report review. But we do have links that are available that can direct you in terms of what types of tools and what kinds of systems that you can actually use. So that is email, protect your email and reputation. So at this point, we'll open it up the floor to any questions you have on any questions that you have on anything that we've covered over the past 3 weeks. So it doesn't just have to be in terms of backup and recover and protect your email reputation. If you have any types of questions, feel free to ask those questions.
Looks like we might have one question coming through the chat.
Yeah, I see. Go ahead and post the questions you have. How to prevent risk of being hacked by developer on platforms, software who could leave some holes in security so he or anyone else could break it easily. Yeah, that's going to be the hard part, because in software, you really are relying on the developer of that software to actually patch the system and plug in those holes that end up being discovered. So in some situations, depending on what the issue is, you can make sure you have things like firewalls in place, right? So if you have an office environment and you can put a firewall in from between your router and all the desktops and laptops that you may have, because what helps, and then on that firewall, define only what kind of activity would be going on through that firewall, right? So like if, for example, if all your users just need web access, you would only open up a specific port to allow for web access, and then you would block everything else. That helps, right? Because a lot of these vulnerabilities that end up happening, occur because all these different ports are open. Like, for example, if you don't need remote desktop, right? Because there is nothing that you need to remote desktop into, you would not allow for that port to be open on the firewall. So therefore they can't take advantage. So an attacker can't take advantage of that. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing is you just make sure you do your due diligence and stay on top of that software. recommendation would be is only install software that you absolutely need on that system. If you don't need it, get rid of it, right? Because you may not need to have all your employees using, maybe like using Adobe Photoshop. Maybe one or two people actually need to use Adobe Photoshop. Does everyone need to have PowerPoint on their machines? Does everyone need to have Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel on their machines? They may not all need it. They may only need certain, just give them the applications that they need in order to, do their jobs. But yeah, I mean, it is one of the harder ones because you are relying on that third-party software developer to actually secure and securely develop their systems. But I mean, if you have your own developers, make sure they follow some sort of security development, right? Make sure they do security testing. They, have them do like assessments against their code to make sure there aren't any security issues or problems that can occur.
And I'll just add on that, Shazad, that you could have someone like a third party come in and test it and do like penetration testing on your software. But that's an additional cost.
Yeah. So you're having an outsourced developer who might have all the keys or that's where what you would want to do in that kind of situation. If they're putting in like some sort of authentication keys or something like that in there, you may want to actually make sure you go through the code with them, and ask them that, hey, where are all the keys, and maybe regenerate the keys with what you may have generated. So that way you have control over it. But again, that's where it becomes a trust type aspect, hoping that the outsourced developer will do what they're doing and not give you insecure code or bad code that can cause issues and cause compromise. That's why I said in some cases it's better to have an in-house developer if at all possible. And that's, again, it becomes a cost thing, right?
Are there any additional questions? If there aren't any additional questions, Shazad, I think we have one more slide that just kind of goes over all of the resources that you all have access to. It's been in the PowerPoints that have been sent over to you all at the end of each session. I'll send this one out as well, along with the recording in the next couple of days. Feel free to reach out to either Shazad or myself. Katya has both of our email addresses, and I believe they're also in this presentation. But we're here for you guys, and if you have any questions in the future, definitely reach out. Thank you all for joining us over the last 3 weeks, and hope to be in contact with you again in the future.
Thank you, Lacey, Shahzad, for very interesting seminar, and we're waiting for the record so we can upload it, and people who couldn't attend this meeting can have that information too. So thank you all for participation. And if there is not anything else.
Thank you.